Feeling overwhelmed was so common for me that I pretty much expected to feel this way every day at some point during my day. To give you some context, I used to feel overwhelmed when decluttering. Whenever I found myself navigating new territory or making big decisions for the first time, or whenever I had a laundry list of to-dos to get done. But admittedly, the part of the reason I struggled or had a problem with to-dos is that I tried to keep everything in my head and work from memory, which is not the best strategy, by the way. Let me tell you, especially as a creative, because my mind is usually bouncing from one thing to the next. And if I don't write things down, it's over with, right? But as I glance back over the last couple of years, I've had moments where I felt overwhelmed almost as often as I overthought. And as a certified overthinker, that's crazy to think or accept as my once reality. Raise your hand in the comments if you can relate to this. And if you can relate to this in any way, I want to help you out, because what I've realized in my life is that navigating your way out of overwhelm is overwhelming, right? So what I tend to do in anything that I do is I'm constantly searching for proven success paths that I can learn from, or I end up creating my own success path that's littered with bits of wisdom and simple reminders that help keep me focused on the desired outcome. And what I've come up with here in this situation is a simple process, looking at my own experience with overwhelm, that can help us navigate our way out of overwhelm right now and in the future, regardless of what we're overwhelmed about. And that process is S.A.A.R. Stop, assess, adjust, and resume. Let's talk about each of these for a minute. Whenever we feel overwhelmed, regardless of the situation, and I've definitely felt this way in my journey for sure, a common response we give to that feeling is A, we try to muscle our way through it, or B, we quit, right? And we quit whatever it is that we're working on or doing at the time. And both are the absolute worst thing you can do. The absolute worst thing you can do, which is why I'm in support of the word stop or pause rather than muscling your way through it, figuring things out, and definitely more so than quitting altogether. And let me tell you why. When I look at my journey and I look at some of the key moments where I felt the most overwhelmed in my life, when I was decluttering things like my mental space and my emotional space, when I was working through changing who I was as a person or reinventing myself as a person, when I had a laundry list of to-dos to get done, when I'm creating content, in various moments of my life when I feel very overwhelmed or have felt very overwhelmed, what I had to learn how to do was take a few steps back and just hit pause for a second and just stop all action, just stop myself from taking action on anything. And what that did for me is, one, it helped me to reset. Because oftentimes when we feel overwhelmed, or more than often, usually when we feel overwhelmed, our mental and emotional foundation begins to break down. And we begin to feel like we're losing control of ourselves. We're losing control of the situation. We're losing control of what it is that we're trying to achieve. And it just seems like no matter how hard we work, no matter how fast our wheels are spinning, the goal or the achievement is getting further and further away, right? So first, it allowed me to reset. But the other thing that it allowed me to do is it allowed me to regain control of me, which is a really big one, right? It allowed me to regain control of me. When we feel overwhelmed, like I said, our mental and our emotional foundation begin to break down. And when those things break down, like I said, we feel like we're losing control of ourselves. And while in reality, we're not really losing control of ourselves, just mentally and emotionally, we feel like we've lost control. Now, sometimes this phase, this first step on this process of stopping, sometimes it's going to be a few hours. Sometimes it's a few days. Sometimes it's a few weeks. I've had moments where I had to stop for months at a time. But the time that I stopped, like I said, it allowed me to reset, and it allowed me to rebuild my emotional and mental foundation, which then allowed me to regain control of me. The second step in this process is to assess, right? Assess the situation. When we feel overwhelmed, and I mentioned this earlier in the conversation, when we feel overwhelmed, we do one of two things. We either try to muscle our way through that overwhelm or we quit, right? But what we don't do is we don't assess why we feel overwhelmed to begin with. What is it about this situation that I'm in? What is it about this project that I'm working on? What is it about my environment at that time that's making me feel overwhelmed? How can we assess that situation? When I look at my life over the last couple of years, especially in moments when I'm decluttering as an example, I had to assess those situations. Maybe I felt overwhelmed when decluttering because I was taking on entirely too much. I was trying to declutter my entire life all at one time. The clothes in my closet, my mental space, my emotional space. I was writing poetry. I was trying to declutter my relationships and my friendships. I was trying to figure out who I was as a person. And I was doing all of this at the same time. No wonder I felt overwhelmed, right? If we talk about content creation as another example for me in my life, what I've had to learn how to do is I've had to learn how to create content with intention, meaning I've had to take a step back, right? Stop for a second and say, hey, how can I create content? How can I put out the best content I can in the most efficient way possible with extreme intention without overwhelming myself? Because I'm not only a content creator, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a friend, right? And to balance all of these different aspects, to juggle these different parts of my life, I have to be intentional. I have to be in control. I have to be calm and full of peace, right? I can't be overwhelmed because I'm going to drop a ball or two. I might drop content creation, or I might drop that important family time that I want to have in my life. I may drop being present with my son. And in order for me not to drop a ball, in order for me to manage these properly, I've had to say, okay, hey, I need to create content with intention. I need to be present within my family. I need to be available to certain friendships in my life when they need me, right? So my encouragement for you is, of course, I want you to stop if you're feeling overwhelmed. Just stop, right? But I want you to assess your situation. What is it about your situation that's making you feel overwhelmed? If you're decluttering, what is it about decluttering that's making you feel overwhelmed? If it's some other aspect in your life, your career, your friendships, your hobbies, your family dynamic, right? Other people in your life, what is it about that situation that you're in, that you're facing, that's making you feel overwhelmed? Assess that. What is it about that? Now, as we move into the third step in this process, which is adjust, I can say that making adjustments is challenging. Making adjustments is scary, but making adjustments is also necessary. And I say that because it's the only way to navigate our way out of overwhelm. We have to make adjustments. And if you're afraid to make an adjustment, then you're going to struggle with this navigating yourself out of overwhelm with this entire process, right? Again, if we talk about decluttering, because this is a very popular one, we oftentimes, when we hit a roadblock on our decluttering journey, or when we find ourselves struggling to let something go or navigating how to let something go, we know deep down that we need to make an adjustment, that we need to try a different technique or try a different decluttering tactic. But sometimes we don't make those adjustments because maybe the decluttering tactic or strategy that we're currently trying is a popular one. It's one that we hear everyone talking about. It's one that we hear people raving about all of the success they've had using this particular decluttering technique. So we feel as though we have to also use that same technique in order to make progress on our journey. But when we start to feel overwhelmed and we feel like it's not working for us, well, we have to make an adjustment. We have to try a different technique, a different strategy that may not be as popular amongst the other people who talk about decluttering and letting go. But maybe it's the right strategy for me, right? And not to make this about a promotional thing, but in my Clutter to Clarity starter kits, that's something I talk about. I talk about identifying your clutter personality and then using your clutter personality to identify the best decluttering strategy for you, not just picking one just because it's the most popular one you hear about. But I digress. Something for me in my life that I've had to make a big adjustment on is, again, content creation. Because I'm juggling, or because I want to balance all aspects of my life. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a friend. I'm also a content creator. I'm also a business owner. But I want to be able to balance these in a way that's right for me. Not in a way that I think I should be doing it, but in a way that's right for me. And I've had to make some adjustments. I've had to tweak how I balance my time. I've had to tweak how I prioritize what is important to me in various stages of my life or various seasons of my life. So again, I want to encourage you, if we take a step back again, to stop. If you feel overwhelmed, to just stop for a second, and then to assess your situation, and then to make some adjustments. Now, as we move forward into the last step in this process, which is to resume. After everything is said and done, and you've taken the time to just reset, reevaluate yourself, to assess your situation and make the necessary adjustments to help you navigate your way out of overwhelm, now it's time to resume on that path, on that journey, on those things you want to achieve. Again, if we talk about decluttering, after you've taken a step back from feeling overwhelmed, depending on what decluttering project you're working on, after you've assessed the situation, maybe you're trying to declutter everything at one time. After you've made some adjustments, maybe you picked a different decluttering technique, a different decluttering strategy. After you've made those adjustments, let's hit play. Let's get down and dirty. Let's put that work in and start decluttering your life. Again, if we look at other aspects of your life, maybe it's your career, maybe you're a content creator, maybe you're a business owner, maybe you're trying to develop more relationships in your life, more meaningful relationships in your life. After you've taken that step back, after you've assessed your situation, after you've made some adjustments, now it's time to resume. But hey, at the end of the day, and what I love about this process is that at the end of the day, if you ever feel overwhelmed again, if you find yourself slipping back into that emotional space, that mental space, then guess what? You can start this process all over again. You can hit stop, you can assess your situation, and you can make some adjustments. And then only after that can you hit resume again. I hope this conversation made sense. I hope that you can see how this 4-step process, this simple process, can help you navigate your way out of overwhelm without feeling overwhelmed, right? And then quickly recap it. Number 1 is to stop. Number 2 is to assess your situation. Number 3 is to make some adjustments. And number 4 is to resume. If you enjoyed this, let me know down in the comments. Let's continue this conversation together. Keep growing, keep learning. Always stay true to you, my friend. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.